In this video, I show you how to create mannequin makeup, show you how to remove nasty paintwork, fix chips and cracks in the mannequin's paint, and paint a body with a roller. So here is Rootstein's Laurie AG7 from the Aristocrats collection. She's got a big crack in her neck. She's got very heavy paint. She's got a name, AG7. And she's got this weird texture all over her. And she's got some beautiful, vivid eye makeup. So I've been trying to find a Laurie from the Aristocrats collection for a very long time. She goes back all the way to 1969, the same as me. I'm going to see if I can get this horrible makeup off by using water, first of all. Always try water, you never know. It could be water-based paint. You can dream, you can hope. There's all sorts of weird textures and different paints on here, so I'm going to try isopropyl alcohol next, and that's taken some dirt off, and her Sharpie eyebrows. I think she looks like Cleopatra. Elizabeth Taylor. No, I'm just kidding. And the goal is to hopefully remove this paint and find a beautiful, pristine Rootstein paint job from 1969 under there. So I start with the more gentle approach. Now, I've dived into acetone here, so the gentle approach is gone. And that has definitely removed the paint, but it's just a question of how much paint that acetone is going to remove. She's got very, very heavy paint on there. And I think that was nail polish, so acetone deals with nail polish very, very easily. And look at that, she looks beautiful. No, she's going to need a lot of acetone, so gloves, a mask, be responsible, an old rag. And I'm starting on the top of her head because I just want to kind of get an idea about how much paint she's got on there. It's very difficult to tell. When I first got Laurie, I thought maybe she had been painted, wrapped up in a cloth, and put away for a while because of that unusual texture I showed you earlier on. I thought maybe she'd been stored somewhere hot and the fabric had left an impression in her paint. But I was surprised. There's a big surprise coming up, so stay tuned. Anyway, so getting the paint off. And obviously I'm inside here, and you want to make sure that you've got all your windows open if you're using acetone. And look, this is what she looks like. Now, I'm just going over the eyes because I want to kind of find, like I said, it would be nice if there is a beautiful paint job under here that I can just resurrect, sort of an archaeological approach. And you can see, yes, an eye is starting to appear. Beautiful blue eyes. But they're pretty rough. And can you see the horror that's about to unfold? She's got fabric soaked in acetone there, and look, you can see she's got fabric stuck to her, and I'm assuming it's stuck everywhere. Now, I have no idea why someone would embed fabric with paint, but here I've removed all of it apart from on her forehead. And the reason why I've used acetone on her face is because she's got quite a lot of wrinkles. Laurie's a very special mannequin because she's quite mature, shall we say. Now look at that hole that happened. I filled her ear with acetone, and I've realised that actually all the undercuts in her sculpt are quite a lot deeper than what they looked. I thought she looked a bit kind of muted for a Rootstein mannequin. And that's because all of her cavities were filled with paint and fabric. So now I am sanding the body, so from the face back, and look, here's that crack I was talking about, and that's the reason why. They all get this crack, and it's because there's this great big solid chunk in the neck area. Right, now the paint's off, and you can see she's got a little pinhole. She's got a few little rough areas that I'm going to need to fill. And you can see which direction the original eye was pointing, so that's quite good. It just shows which direction I should have her focus. Now you can see that the makeup is hovering around the edge of the screen, and I'll tell you about that soon and why I'm doing it that way. Now this is polyester filler, and I'm using this corking tool here to apply it. Polyester filler works very quickly. The warmer the temperature is, the quicker it'll work. So I'm applying it with a skewer, a bamboo skewer, and you can just see this is just above her eyebrow. It's a little bit rough, but I'm trying not to erase her wrinkles, her forehead wrinkles. So I'm just sort of being very careful here to not fill that wrinkle in. They didn't have filler back in 1969, so let's not erase all of her character. So just kind of working it in, and I want to have a soft edge, and I'm just, that cotton bud is right on that wrinkle that I'm trying to keep. Luckily this weird texture, I guess it might be one of the reasons why she was originally painted so heavily, is on this high part of her sculpt. So I'm just running that sharper edge of that tool through the wrinkle and trying to kind of create a very soft transition from the valley to the peak of that part of the sculpt. Now the reason why I have the mannequin floating around the edge having her makeup done is because I was going to do a separate video, but it actually turned out to be 2.5 hours long, and then when I combined it with the panel beating, shall we say, the fixing of the sculpt, it was going to be like a 3-hour video, and I know people don't like that. So now there's a pinhole. I'm just filling that with a toothpick and some of that polyester filler. So yeah, I thought I'll do it this way, and this way you can kind of see what it went through to get her ready to paint, and then you can kind of see how I painted her as well. So here's that tool again. I'm just scraping it across that pinhole. She had some nails hammered into her head, and so I'm just filling those. I'm pushing the polyester filler into those holes with a toothpick. It's very high tech. And then using my little corking tool. I'll put a link in the description below about where you can get one of these corking tools. And this is that crack in the neck, and the same thing, pushing that filler into that crack. Now I'm trying to do this voiceover in one take, so if I'm rambling or I say a few crazy things, forgive me. The last video that I edited, the audio took me hours, so I thought, you know what, stuff it. I'm actually just going to ramble on and hopefully not make a fool of myself. This little tool is amazing. You should definitely get one. It's got all these little angles and little surfaces and different shapes that you can use. Now look, this is the sanding. I've taken it up on the roof and I'm sanding the hell out of it basically. This was a complete surprise. I thought this was going to be a quick job. I didn't realize she had all this fabric embedded into this paint. So, last little sand with a very fine gauge sandpaper just on the face, and that's pretty much where I got her to before I undercoated her. Now, this is a hard cap wig base, and I have a video about how to make one of them, and if you don't know, that's what a hard cap wig is, because they are custom made for each mannequin. They offer durability and they stay put really well. Now these are her legs. They are not her AG7 legs, but work well as far as how the angles meet at the bottom of the torso and the top of the legs. She stands nice and straight. She doesn't look all crooked like you see mannequins sometimes. Anyway, super glue on top of all the fine chips in her paint. I super glue them. It kind of gets under the loose little bits of paint. You let it dry for a bit and then you sand it. And now I have a silicone spatula that I've taken the handle off. And I've cut a little semicircle out of it because that is quite handy into sort of a negative curve. And I'm sorry about the head on top of that piece of cardboard there, but I'm mixing up more polyester putty, and I'm just scraping it over the top where that super glue is, and that just fills in all of the discrepancies in the surface. And she's got a big chip around her top of her leg there. Can you see that, where a lot of it's broken off? I'm going to deal with that now. So I take her leg off, more polyester filler. This is what automotive repairs use. I've packed it over the top there. Yes, you can see a bit of pink on my wooden spatula there, and I should have had it mixed in better than that, but this was my last spatula, so mix it very well. Now this is a piece of acetate. It's actually a liner from a disposable paint tray. You want a big sheet of acetate and push it on there, because the polyester filler will not stick to the acetate. Now I am putting her leg back on. And I'm just going to use that spatula to just sort of push it in and get a nice contour on there. Now I use this polyester filler a lot, and there's supposed to be a ratio of how much filler to how much catalyst. That's the pink stuff, but it doesn't really matter. Now here I'm banging it on a chip on her heel. It doesn't really matter because, and now I'm putting cling film over it, and that gives you a nice rounded kind of smooth edge to it. It takes about 10 minutes to harden to the point where you can take it off. So look, peel it off. You get a lovely kind of round, smoother finish. And I'm going to use it on this hole in her toe. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So the catalyst is what activates it. It's some sort of peroxide. And basically, the hotter the temperature, air temperature is, the quicker it will work. So there is a sort of variety of, there is varying elements that contribute to how fast this stuff works. But when you're using it for a very small amount like this, you know, you're not going to run out of time unless you're very, very slow. But 10 minutes is about right. Now that's got those contours of the toes quite nicely. Obviously I'm going to have to sand the edges a little bit, but the kitchen wrap is a really good little trick. Now I'm masking off the metal plate at the top of her legs here because I am going to spray her with automotive primer. And I like to keep all the detail, even though it just kind of looks a mess sometimes, I like to keep all the detail and the writing that's written on these metal parts, because they don't mean anything to me, but they might mean something to someone. And if you know anything about what all these codes are that are written on these metal parts, let me know in the comments. Now look, spraying up on the roof. I am spraying with automotive primer, and this stuff is actually the sandable type. You have different thicknesses in how it sort of dries, and this is a different one. This is finer. I don't want to fill in all those wrinkles, so I'm using this. It looks a slightly different color actually, but this stuff won't destroy her wrinkles. Now I've only gone down to the top of her chest there, you probably noticed that. And that's because I always find, oh, I've got to sand a bit more. And true enough, that is what happened here. Because I'm old and I can't see properly, look at that wrinkle by her nose, or on that little fold of her nose. So this way I can sand it, and then I can put another coat on and build it up that way. Now, mask off the metalwork. I didn't do it earlier, but I didn't think I was going to put that much on, but here we go again. So another coat. This is the next day after it dried really well, and I just sanded the face again a little bit. And look, I got a chance to fix that little bit I sanded on her nose. Now I'm going to mask her eyes off. I like my eyes to be white before I do any makeup on them, so I'm just going to spray paint the whites. So I do it this way. I push that blue tape onto her eyes, and then I use a Sharpie to sort of mark the edges, and I keep both parts, keep these little bits that are stuck to the wood, and I place them back over, You have to kind of pinch the corners a little bit. You want it to be just on the edge of the eyelids where the eyelashes would be. And then I put a paper bag with more masking tape over it and spray it white. And now I get a nice white smooth eye, so that when I paint the iris, it doesn't have brush strokes in it. And here, look, she looks a bit like an X-Men or one of the Watchmen. But look at that, she's quite glamorous now. I can put her arms on. Now look, I don't know if you're going to notice anything, the elephant in the room, she has no hands, but I have a solution. These here, which I 3D printed. If you're interested in knowing how I made these 3D printed hands, leave a comment down below, please. And when I get enough comments and likes, I will do a video about how to create your own hands. Right, so this is the tray that I'm going to use to paint. This is the roller. The roller is like one of those velour covered rollers, and this is like a cheap makeup brush, which is very soft, and I use it to get up in the nose and in the ears and things. I'm just pushing those little blue cutouts onto her eyes because I want to keep them white. We're going to do this with a roller, which is great when you don't have the space or the capacity to spray paint your mannequins, and really you get a very similar effect. I'm actually converted to doing it with a roller now. I used to spray paint. I'd get spray paint everywhere. I'd use way too much paint. So much simpler. The only thing you've got to watch out for is fluff and dust. And here I am on my terrace and the neighbours are staring at me, painting this woman's breast. Yes, Mrs. Papadopoulos? It's me painting naked ladies again on the roof. Now here I'm using that round contour to sort of push under her breasts. And I'm trying to use as little paint as possible. And this paint is oil-based enamel paint. And yes, I'm sorry if that is ecologically unsound, but I have tried acrylic enamel. What's the word? It's just not hard wearing enough. And it takes ages to dry, and it has a sort of tacky feel at the end of it. I think in the factory they probably use like a lacquer, I think is the word. But this works for me. Now I'm putting quite heavy paint around the shoulder joint because they get knocked quite heavily. When I say heavy, I mean I'm just making sure I get a really good coverage there. And I'm just methodically working my way up the mannequin. I actually kind of leave a little spot on the top of her head so I can hold her rigid. I need the little makeup brush to get behind her ears. And I'm just kind of stippling that. Just stippling the paint on. And I get up inside her nose with it and inside the crevice of her mouth and inside her ear hole. If you ever paint your mannequins in public and you've had some funny experiences and people being shocked about what you're doing, let me know in the comments down below, please. And if this is interesting to you, or if you've learned anything new, or you found this interesting, please subscribe. That would help me a lot. I have more videos planned, and the more comments and the more likes I get, the more I'm going to put out there. I feel like I'm giving my secrets away here, so I need some sort of payoff, please. Thank you very much. Now that this roller, I'm pushing it in there. She's got quite deep cavity in around her eyelid there, so I'm just sort of using it like a makeup sponge, really. And if you want to know where I learned how to do this, it's because this is how my mother put her makeup on when I was a child. And I used to sit there watching her, and she would show me, she said, you know, one day you might want to paint a mannequin, and this is the technique you should use. And so this spot, look, see, I keep a little bit there where I keep my finger on, and I paint that at the very last moment I paint that. And now for a second coat. pretty much using the same technique. And here she is. And there's Joan Collins waiting for her moment. And here she is, Laurie, done. And who does she look like here? She reminds me of someone. Leave a comment if you think she looks like anybody.